Kara Morgan kept her face still as Tessa Lang slid the glossy photos one by one across the mahogany table. In each, Kara sat with a different man in bright cafes and dim restaurants, her head tilted, her hand sometimes touching her own sleeve, her smile easy. Please like and subscribe to my channel for more contents. Marjorie Rowe, Kara's mother-in-law, let out a sharp breath that sounded like a cracked teacup. Look at these, Tessa said, voice gentle but loud, turning her shoulder toward Kara's husband. While Ethan breaks his back at work, she's out with other men. Tessa's hand settled on Ethan Rowe's shoulder like she had rehearsed it. On his other side, Alina Cruz, the woman he had been sleeping with for months, stared at the table and said nothing. Tessa's eyes shone with victory. Now you don't have to feel guilty about Alina, and you definitely don't have to give Kara anything in the divorce. Kara counted to 3 in her head. Ethan wouldn't look at her. Marjorie put on a sad face. Richard Rowe, the father, looked like he wished he were anywhere else. What do you have to say for yourself? Tessa asked, one hand on her hip, the other hovering over the photos like a judge about to pass sentence. Kara took a slow sip of water. Nice pictures, she said. The lighting is excellent. You paid your private investigator a lot. Tessa's smile slipped a fraction. She'd written a script for this scene, and Kara clearly hadn't read it. That's all. Tessa snapped. You're not going to deny it? Kara reached into her bag. Everyone tensed, waiting for tears or a confession. She set a tablet on the table, screen black, glass catching the chandelier above. Why would I deny it? Her voice stayed even. Those men are divorce lawyers. The room went quiet enough to hear the air conditioner breathe. What? Tessa's eyelids jumped. Kara tapped a photo. Felix Grant, top family lawyer in Greybridge. Another photo. Marco Ellis. His firm handles infidelity cases. The last one. William Hale, asset protection expert, who knows every trick you tried this month. Ethan's water glass suddenly deserved a stare. Alina bit her lip. Marjorie's fingers trembled against the back of a chair. Richard's jaw moved like he was about to speak, then stopped. You're lying, Tessa said, but the word landed softer now. Kara woke the tablet. Emails and signed consultation agreements bloomed on the screen. She swiped slow, letting each header sit long enough for the room to read it. The sweet thing about legal meetings, she said, is paperwork. Ethan finally looked up. Kara, when? 3 months ago, she said. The night I walked into your office and saw you and Alina. You didn't notice me at first. You were laughing. Alina closed her eyes. I don't, Ethan muttered. Kara kept going. After that, I did what any calm person does. I wrote a list and booked appointments. Tessa pointed at the photos. Then why were you so public? Kara smiled. Because you were following me. I needed your investigator to capture the right story. She let the word settle, then added gently, next time, check who your investigator works for. Marjorie's voice cracked. Kara, we welcomed you into our family. Kara looked at her. You welcomed my free labor. Richard coughed into his fist. Tessa pushed forward. Even if those are lawyers, you were plotting. Preparing, Kara said. There's a difference. She slid a slim folder from the side pocket of her bag. The paper inside was thin and dangerous. And during those meetings, I learned about property transfers, new shell companies, titles moving out of reach. Ethan turned to his father. Dad, the papers you asked me to sign last month, was that about this? Richard didn't meet his son's eyes. Routine business, he said. Kara's eyebrows lifted. Routine? The timing matches your affair. The transfers began the same week. Alina's head jerked. The same week. Kara glanced at her. He promised you a condo, didn't he? Alina flinched. Ethan's chair scraped an inch. Don't talk to her, he said, voice tight. Talk to me. Kara folded her hands. I am. Tessa tried for righteous fury. You can't threaten us. Kara tilted her head. It isn't a threat. She tapped the folder. It's evidence. She slid one page toward Ethan. Here's a list of assets moved from Rome Meridian Holdings into 3 new companies. Aegis North LLC, River Park West LLC, and Highlane Ventures. All formed after midnight on the 10th. Cute. Richard's eyes flickered. Those are protective measures. Against me? Kara asked. Against public shame, Richard said. Marjorie caught his sleeve. Richard. Tessa reached for a photo and waved it like a flag. She sat in full view. She touched men's arms. She smiled. Kara shrugged. I'm friendly when I negotiate. She turned to Ethan. You once told me I was too trusting. I listened. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. Alina whispered, Ethan, did you move things because of me? He didn't answer. The silence answered for him. Kara pressed her thumb to the tablet again. An audio file waited like a lit match. There's more, she said. A recording. Tessa scoffed. Illegal. No, Kara said softly. Consent was given by a participant. She looked at Alina. Alina's hands twisted in her lap. He promised to keep me until the papers were signed, Alina said. Then he told Tessa he'd let me go once the gold digger was out. The word hung in the air, mean and small. Marjorie gasped. Ethan! He stood up, then sat back down like his legs forgot how to hold him. This is getting out of hand. Kara nodded. It is. So let's simplify. You tried to hide assets. I documented it. We can handle this in private with lawyers, or we can talk about fraud in a courtroom. She glanced at Richard. Judges dislike midnight shells. Richard rubbed his temple. Tessa, sit down, he said. She didn't move. Kara's phone buzzed against the wood. She flipped it over. A message from Felix Grant. Confirmed for tomorrow, 10 a.m. Conference Room B. Bring originals. Kara felt her pulse steady. I have a meeting in the morning, she said. If you want to be there, bring counsel. Tessa laughed once, too high. Counsel? We have the best. Not anymore, Kara said. Felix is the best in Greybridge. Tessa blinked. You can't afford him. Kara set another sheet down. Engagement letter. Retainer paid from her separate savings account. Dated the week after discovery. Ethan whispered, almost to himself. She planned all of this. Kara looked at him. You planned the cheating. She stood, smoothing her dress. We all make plans. Marjorie reached for her. Kara, please. Kara stepped back. Marjorie, you texted me. You'll leave with nothing the day I found out. I kept the screenshot. Marjorie's face fell open in shock. I didn't, you did, Kara said. You even used 3 exclamation points. Kara gathered her things. I appreciate the photos, she said to Tessa. They'll help. Tessa's mouth worked. Help how? They prove I met lawyers. Public places. Visible times. Consistent story. Richard muttered, This is ridiculous. Kara paused at the doorway. Richard, you taught Ethan to move pieces until the board looked clean. I only learned to see the board. Ethan stood again. Kara, wait. She looked at him. For a second, his eyes were the same ones that once made her feel safe. Then the second ended. Your lawyer will get the packet tomorrow, she said. Read the part about fraudulent conveyance. It's short. Alina finally spoke, voice low. I'm sorry. Kara nodded once. Make better choices. Tessa tried one last jab. You're not the woman he married. Kara's reply was quiet. No, I'm the woman he made. Outside, the night smelled like rain and taxi exhaust. Kara stood beside her car until her hands stopped shaking. She let herself have 10 seconds, no more, for a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. Then she drove to her apartment, plugged her phone in, and opened her checklist. Under Phase 1, exposure, she typed complete. Under Phase 2, containment, she added 2 new tasks: bank subpoenas and temporary restraining order on asset transfers. Her phone lit with a string of messages from unknown numbers. Threats, please, half apologies. One from Marjorie. Family doesn't do this to family. Kara archived it. She stared at the word family until it blurred. Family tells the truth, she said to the quiet room. She printed the email thread with Felix and stacked it with her originals. She set an old voice recorder on top, the one Alina had used. Her thumb hovered over the play button, then moved away. She didn't need to hear it again. She already knew every word. Morning came gray and cool over Greybridge. Felix Grant's office felt like quiet thunder. Dark wood, clean lines, a view that made the river look obedient. Kara sat at the long table as Ethan walked in with a lean man in a navy suit. Richard and Marjorie followed. Tessa came last, wearing confidence like perfume. Ms. Morgan, Felix said, nodding. Shall we begin? Ethan's lawyer started fast. These are normal transactions. Felix opened a folder, dated within days of the affair's start, to new LLCs managed by a cousin who lives in another state. Titles moved without fair consideration. That isn't normal. That's concealment. Tessa slammed a hand on the table. She's trying to ruin us. Kara kept her gaze on Ethan. No, I'm protecting what I built with you. She slid a page to the center. Here is your mother's text. Here is your father's email to the CFO. Here is a memo about minimizing exposure to KM. Ethan stared at the initials. You were never invisible to me, Kara said. You were just loud. The room went very still. Then Felix spoke, calm and final. We can settle today or we can file today. Choose. Ethan's hand tightened around his pen. The extra silence felt like a cliff edge. Ethan leaned toward his lawyer, whispering fast. Kara could see the way his fingers tapped against the polished table, a nervous rhythm he'd never been able to hide. Richard broke the quiet. Settle, Ethan. We can't afford this to go public. Tessa whipped her head toward him. We can fight this and end up in court. Richard's tone was sharp, with recordings, screenshots, asset transfers traced back to my name. Marjorie touched his arm, but he pulled away. Felix sat patiently, his pen resting on the open folder. Kara noticed his stillness. It had weight, the kind that made the others fidget. Well, Felix asked. Ethan looked at Kara for the first time that morning, really looked at her. You planned every step. Kara didn't blink, and you underestimated every step. Ethan's lawyer finally spoke up. We're prepared to discuss terms. Tessa's eyes widened. What? You can't just give her. Ethan's hand shot up. Enough. His voice cracked through the room. We settle. Kara let the quiet settle for a moment longer before sliding her settlement proposal across the table. Felix handed out copies like they were invitations to an event no one wanted to attend. These terms are fair, Felix said. My client asks for no more than her rightful share of assets and business holdings, plus documented damages for the concealment attempts. Tessa's mouth opened to argue, but Richard's glare stopped her cold. Marjorie muttered something under her breath, but Kara caught it. She was supposed to be easy. Kara smiled faintly. I was, once. Felix flipped to the final page. If you sign today, we will file a joint statement indicating an amicable resolution. No criminal charges, no public filings detailing the transfers. Richard exhaled as if a rope around his chest had loosened. Sign it, Ethan. Tessa still shook her head. You're making a mistake. Kara turned to her, voice calm. The mistake was thinking I wouldn't notice, or thinking I wouldn't know how to respond. Ethan stared at the paper for several seconds before picking up the pen. The sound of his signature sliding across the page was loud in the hush of the conference room. He signed the second copy, then pushed it forward with a hand that trembled almost imperceptibly. Tessa tried one last angle. Those photos. She was showing off, parading those meetings in public. Kara's laugh was soft. Of course I was. I wanted you to see them. You were the audience. She met Tessa's eyes. You believed what you wanted to believe, and I used that. Richard shifted uncomfortably, his gaze fixed on the contract. Felix gathered the signed papers with deliberate care, stacking them neatly. We're done here, he said. My office will file the necessary confirmations by the end of the day. Ethan leaned back in his chair, looking like a man who'd just realized the game had ended before he even learned the rules. As they stood to leave, Ethan's voice stopped Kara at the door. When did you become like this? Kara glanced over her shoulder. Like what? Cold. Calculating. She tilted her head, her expression unreadable. I learned from the best, she said softly. Your family taught me. She didn't wait for a reply. Outside, the autumn air in Greybridge felt sharper than she remembered. The clouds overhead were pale and high, the kind that made the river look like steel. She walked to her car without looking back, each step measured, her heels striking the pavement in steady rhythm. Back at her apartment, she poured herself a cup of coffee and set the signed documents in a folder labeled Final. Her phone buzzed with a message from Alina. It's done. Thank you for showing me the truth. Kara stared at it for a moment, then typed back. Sometimes the truth is the only thing worth giving. She placed the phone face down and stood at the window, watching the city stretch awake. 6 months ago, she'd thought losing Ethan would destroy her. Now, she could barely remember what loving him had felt like. The person she'd been then would have cried in that conference room. The woman she was now had walked out, smiling. Weeks passed. The Rowe family began to unravel quietly. Richard retired early from Rowe Meridian Holdings, citing health concerns, though Karen knew it was to avoid board questions. Marjorie threw herself into charity events, each photo op more desperate than the last. Tessa lost her position in the company after internal audits raised conflict of interest concerns. Ethan, stripped of the marital image and the easy access to family capital, had been quietly moved to a less visible role in the firm. Kara didn't gloat, but she noticed, and she remembered. One brisk morning, Kara met her friend Lena for lunch. Lena had been her anchor through the storm. Did you hear? Lena asked as she sat down. Ethan's been demoted again. Kara raised an eyebrow. Not surprised. He was never half as clever as he thought. Lena smiled. And you? How's the consulting business? Kara's eyes warmed. We opened our second office last week. More women are reaching out for help. They don't want to be blindsided like I was. Lena leaned in. From blindsided to building an empire. I like it. Kara thought for a moment. So do I. That evening, Kara received a text from Marjorie. I miss you. The family isn't the same without you. Kara archived it without replying. Some bridges burned were better left as ashes. She sat at her desk, reviewing applications for her firm's mentorship program, the kind that would train women to spot red flags in both business and relationships. Her doorbell rang, Lena with a bottle of wine. To karma, Lena toasted, settling onto the couch, and to never letting anyone write your ending for you. Kara clinked her glass to Lena's. Later, as the sun slipped behind Greybridge's skyline, the city lights blinked on one by one. Kara stood at the balcony, glass in hand, the cool air brushing against her face. She thought about the Rose, not with anger but with clarity. They had tried to leave her with nothing. Instead, they'd forced her to discover everything she was capable of. The best revenge hadn't been watching them fall. It had been building something solid under her own feet. She raised her glass toward the fading light. "Here's to never underestimating the wrong woman," she whispered. And for the first time in years, she felt entirely, unmistakably free. Like and subscribe to my channel for more contents like this, and let us know where you are watching from under the comment section.